First of all, before I begin, I'd like to thank the people of Lummi for having us down, and also thank the Lummi people for seeing that we go to Rio de Janeiro for the United Nations conference. And I'd like to say hello to everybody. I'm Ruby Dunstan. I'm Nlaka'pamux. I come from Nlaka'pamux country, which is in the middle of British Columbia. And we also have territory that comes down below the US border into the state of Washington. And I'd like to also say that I am a proud Nlaka'pamux, for I believe in my people, not only from the Nlaka'pamux country, but for all the Indian people across Canada and in the United States. And I think, when I think about what's happening to our Mother Earth, you can't help but wonder what is everybody else doing about protecting what little we've got left. And I guess when I see a crowd here tonight, I don't think I have to wonder anymore, because there are some concerned people, which is nice. And I guess it's nice to be concerned. But the other thing that we have to look at too is, what are we prepared to do, each one of us, in order to protect what we've got left? Because if we don't start doing something, I mean, we can't depend on the governments. We know what they do. We can't depend on the corporations, because we also know what they do. They go out and ruin our territories. They ruin the land that's left. And in British Columbia, we fall under the federal government's policies and regulations. And one of the things that they seem to have a habit of saying is that, yes, we'll recognize rights and title, but they've never ever said when. And I know that a lot of the people in Canada and in British Columbia are saying now, because there's hardly anything left, that once the lands are all stripped, and then the governments will be prepared to sit down with the Native people to talk rights and title. And then they're going to say, well, the Indians always wanted self-government. We've given them back their land. Now look at them. They can't even govern themselves. But how can we? Because they've stripped everything that we've got. And the more they strip, the less the people have, not just Native people, but everybody that breathes this air, everybody that's living. We all have a right. Some of us don't look at it so closely. Some of us do. And I think that the time has come that we have to all look at it closely together. It doesn't matter what color we are, what religion we have, where we come from. My elders back home talk about the boat people. Christopher Columbus was a boat person. He happened to get lost, and our people were so kind and took them onto land. And we said that we'd be prepared to share with them. And what did they do? They shared their diseases with us. They shared their greed. And unfortunately, some of us have fallen into that trap where they expect us to live the way they've lived. But I guess that's a choice everybody makes. But it's a shame that we all can't see the world for what it is, for what's left of it. When David Suzuki speaks, he talks about if we don't do something about clearing up the air that we breathe, and if we don't stop these corporations from putting their smokestacks into the sky, the ozone layer is going to disappear. And everybody will be ending up with skin cancer and all sorts of other diseases because there's no ozone to protect us anymore. And I think when you hear a scientist speaking like that, and when the governments in our country try to shut up a scientist like that, then I think it's time we started worrying about the kind of world we're going to have left to live in. Because those are the very exact things that have happened to David Suzuki. And for myself, I've been followed around by people that are called CSIS people in our country. They call Canada. During the time that I was a chief, and I was a chief for 8 years in my homeland, and when I started speaking about rights and title, and asking the corporations and the provincial government to stay out of our traditional territory, which is called the Stein Valley. A lot of people felt threatened that these CSIS people were following me, but to me that was a clear indication that I was getting through to people that should be really paying attention. That was the federal government and the provincial government. And the reason why they had these CSIS people following me was they said that I was a threat to the country of Canada. And if I'm a threat to anybody, so be it. I'm only doing what I know is right for my people, and I'm speaking up for my people. And if that's what it takes to be called a threat, then that's fine with me. I know I'm doing something right then. When I talk about the Stein Valley, Stein Valley is a traditional and a spiritual place for my people. Not only for my people, but for all the peoples of the Pacific Northwest, because the anthropologists that we had working for us had said that they had found information in the valley that made it clear that people from all over the Pacific Northwest, like the Indian people that wanted to become Indian doctors, they went to the Stein Valley for their vision quests. And there's proof of it out there. And yet, the corporations, a multinational corporation like Fletcher Challenge, who is based in New Zealand, wants to go into that valley to start logging, but in order to get to where the timber is, they have to build 6 miles of road, and it's through rock. We asked them, what are you going to do with the rocks once you blast them? Oh, dump them in the river. We said, you can't do anything in there because of our spiritual caves and our traditional foods and everything else that we've got in there. And one of their remarks was, from the forestry department, was, well, if you let us bury up those caves with the rocks that we blast, then you wouldn't have to worry about anybody damaging them anymore. I mean, when you hear somebody say that about something that belongs to my people, it really shows, and it clearly indicates where they're coming from. And they don't care about people. All they care about is dollars. And it's sad to see that. And I think that when you see things like that happening, and people that are shareholders of such companies and such corporations, and all they worry about is how much money they're going to make because they're a shareholder, I think that's really sad, you know. I know a lot of us in this room have always been poor. I've been poor all my life. And if I've got money to jingle in my pocket for a day or so, I'm lucky. And to me, to have my traditional values and my spiritual values maintained, not only for myself, but for my grandchildren and the future generations that are yet to come, that to me is more important than having some money to jingle in my pocket. Because I never ever had money in my life, so why worry about it now, you know? So I guess one of the things that I'd like to accomplish while I'm in Rio de Janeiro for the United Nations Conference and for the Indigenous Peoples Conference is to try and be an educator to anybody that will listen from anywhere in the world. I would like to be an educator to them so that they can learn about people in Canada, Indian people from all over that I know about, and just share what I know with them so that they can take it home and share what they know with their people so that everybody will understand us. Because there's a lot of people that don't know why we have roadblocks. A lot of people, even our own people, think we're foolish to have a roadblock when it comes to protecting something that we believe is ours. And it's rightfully ours, because our ancestors had never ever signed a piece of paper saying that they gave up our rights to the land, to the foods that are on the lands. They've never ever signed away any rights for the waters, for the rivers, the mountains, the fish, the salmon. They've never ever signed a piece of paper saying that those were given away by them. And yet, the governments are saying that we have nothing, that Indian people do not exist. And if we don't exist, then why are we as panel members here? Why are we as Indian people then going to Rio de Janeiro so that people will learn more about us? I know I exist. I've met some wonderful people this afternoon, and they're Indian people, and I know they exist because I've spoken with them. I've sat with them and ate with them. And they do exist, and yet the governments think we don't. Now, isn't that a shame? We have to live with people like that? And once they take away the land that we know is rightfully ours, and then they're going to come and say, it's all yours, do what you can with it, and yet they've stripped it of gold, of silver, of copper, salmon, water, trees, everything will be gone. Then they'll turn around and say, it's yours, do what you can with it. Survive on that. We've had enough of that. I know in British Columbia, they say that they're going to settle rights and title. But it's not on our terms, it's on their terms. And it's on the corporation's terms. And the Indian people are only going to be bystanders. And they're going to see their rights settled by the corporations, because the corporations, it doesn't matter which government is in, they control the governments. That's how bad the corporations are. That's how money hungry they are. And I really hate to come up here and sound so pessimistic, but what I tell you is true. And if I've hurt anybody in this room with the words that I've spoken, that was never the intention. My intention, whenever I get up to speak, is to tell the truth, and that's what I've done. I thank you for listening.